the photo call.
Okay, so today we're going to do Animal Farm Chapter 9. Even though I said don't do the vocabulary, so stop, please.
Okay. Sorry.
So you guys don't necessarily have to translate it right now, but you can read over the words because they came up in the chapter, and they will come up in the chapter. So when you guys are following along with the audiobook, I would like you to even underline the words in your copy of Chapter 9, because it'll help you later on in terms of context. And it will also help you because we have an exercise where you're going to summarize the chapter. So you're going to imagine that, well, Yazid isn't here today, right? So he misses this entire chapter, so you're going to write a summary for him and tell him what Chapter 9 was about. So you guys have like 2 minutes to read through the words, even though some of you have already translated it, which is okay, but just read through them, read through the definitions, get familiar because they will show up in the reading, and then you can actively read and try and find the words in the chapter.
So ignored. I don't want to move.
So quick.
But you cheated, you translated the words. So a lot of those words are English, British language, so we don't use them in Canada, so they're not really words that you're ever probably going to see after this point. Like knacker is not a word we use, ever.
What about me?
Knacker?
Yeah.
I'll give you an answer. You're going to have to read and figure it out. They do use the synonym. The English, what we would use in Canada, they do use the synonym in the reading. So you'll be able to figure it out. You guys can also talk. You don't have to not talk just because it's being recorded. Okay? Alright. So
Hi, Andrew.
okay, so we'll start the audiobook and you guys can follow along. And it's 19 minutes, so it's almost 20 minutes long, so please don't take this time to take a nap. But follow along in your text.
We have already taken the. Oh, sorry.
Huh?
We are actors.
Actually, we have already taken the nap
We are
last
actors.
period. So you don't need to worry about who will take the nap.
Oh, you did that last class, okay. Okay, so what I want you guys to do though while you're reading along is make note of any information you think is important. Because remember, you guys are doing a summary after this. So you have to summarize the important parts for Yazid who's not here. So just maybe mark off some things that you think you should remember for after the reading, because you need to use the text when you're doing your summary. Okay? So we'll start now.
To take even a day off work, and made it a point of honor not to let it be seen that he was in pain. Chapter 9. Boxer's split hoof was a long time in healing. They had started the rebuilding of the windmill the day after the victory celebrations were ended. Boxer refused to take even a day off work, and made it a point of honor not to let it be seen that he was in pain. In the evenings, he would admit privately to Clover that the hoof troubled him a great deal. Clover treated the hoof with poultices of herbs which she prepared by chewing them, and both she and Benjamin urged Boxer to work less hard. A horse's lungs do not last forever, she said to him. But Boxer would not listen. He had, he said, only one real ambition left: to see the windmill well underway before he reached the age for retirement. At the beginning, when the laws of Animal Farm were first formulated, the retiring age had been fixed for horses and pigs at 12, for cows at 14, for dogs at 9, for sheep at 7, and for hens and geese at 5. Liberal old age pensions had been agreed upon. As yet, no animal had actually retired on pension. But of late, the subject had been discussed more and more. Now that the small field beyond the orchard had been set aside for barley, it was rumored that a corner of the large pasture was to be fenced off and turned into a grazing ground for the superannuated animals. For a horse, it was said, the pension would be 5 pounds of corn a day, and in winter, 15 pounds of hay, with a carrot or possibly an apple on public holidays. Boxer's 12th birthday was due in the late summer of the following year. Meanwhile, life was hard. The winter was as cold as the last one had been, and food was even shorter. Once again, all rations were reduced, except those of the pigs and the dogs. A too rigid equality in rations, Squealer explained, would have been contrary to the principles of animalism. In any case, he had no difficulty in proving to the other animals that they were not in reality short of food, whatever the appearances might be. For the time being, certainly, it had been found necessary to make a readjustment of rations. Squealer always spoke of it as a readjustment, never as a reduction. But in comparison with the days of Jones, the improvement was enormous. Reading out the figures in a shrill, rapid voice, he proved to them in detail that they had more oats, more hay, more turnips than they had had in Jones's day, that they worked shorter hours, that their drinking water was of better quality, that they lived longer, that a larger proportion of their young ones survived infancy, and that they had more straw in their stalls and suffered less from fleas. The animals believed every word of it. Truth to tell, Jones and all he stood for had almost faded out of their memories. They knew that life nowadays was harsh and bare, that they were often hungry and often cold, and that they were usually working when they were not asleep. But doubtless it had been worse in the old days. They were glad to believe so. Besides, in those days they had been slaves, and now they were free. And that made all the difference. As Squealer did not fail to point out, there were many more mouths to feed now. In the autumn, the 4 sows had all littered about simultaneously, producing 31 young pigs between them. The young pigs were piebald, and as Napoleon was the only boar on the farm, it was possible to guess at their parentage. It was announced that later, when bricks and timber had been purchased, a schoolroom would be built in the farmhouse garden. For the time being, the young pigs were given their instruction by Napoleon himself in the farmhouse kitchen. They took their exercise in the garden, and were discouraged from playing with the other young animals. About this time, too, it was laid down as a rule that when a pig and any other animal met on the path, the other animal must stand aside, and also that all pigs, of whatever degree, were to have the privilege of wearing green ribbons on their tails on Sundays. The farm had had a fairly successful year, but was still short of money. There were the bricks, sand, and lime for the schoolroom to be purchased, and it would also be necessary to begin saving up again for the machinery for the windmill. Then there were lamp oil and candles for the house, sugar for Napoleon's own table. He forbade this to the other pigs, on the ground that it made them fat. And all the usual replacements such as tools, nails, string, coal, wire, scrap iron, and dog biscuits. A stump of hay and part of the potato crop were sold off, and the contract for eggs was increased to 600 a week, so that year the hens barely hatched enough chicks to keep their numbers at the same level. Rations, reduced in December, were reduced again in February, and lanterns in the stalls were forbidden to save oil. But the pigs seemed comfortable enough, and in fact were putting on weight if anything. One afternoon in late February, a warm, rich, appetizing scent, such as the animals had never smelt before, wafted itself across the yard from the little brew house, which had been disused in Jones's time, and which stood beyond the kitchen. Someone said that it was the smell of cooking barley. The animals sniffed the air hungrily and wondered whether a warm mash was being prepared for their supper. But no warm mash appeared, and on the following Sunday, it was announced that from now onwards, all barley would be reserved for the pigs. The field beyond the orchard had already been sown with barley, and the news soon leaked out that every pig was now receiving a ration of a pint of beer daily, with half a gallon for Napoleon himself, which was always served to him in the Crown Derby soup tureen. But if there were hardships to be borne, they were partly offset by the fact that life nowadays had a greater dignity than it had had before. There were more songs, more speeches, more processions. Napoleon had commanded that once a week there should be held something called a spontaneous demonstration, the object of which was to celebrate the struggles and triumphs of Animal Farm. At the appointed time, the animals would leave their work and march round the precincts of the farm in military formation, with the pigs leading, then the horses, then the cows, then the sheep, and then the poultry. The dogs flanked the procession, and at the head of all marched Napoleon's black cockerel. Boxer and Clover always carried between them a green banner, marked with the hoof and the horn, and the caption, "Long live Comrade Napoleon." Afterwards, there were recitations of poems composed in Napoleon's honor, and a speech by Squealer giving particulars of the latest increases in the production of foodstuffs, and on occasion, a shot was fired from the gun. The sheep were the greatest devotees of the spontaneous demonstration, and if anyone complained, as a few animals sometimes did, when no pigs or dogs were near, that they wasted time and meant a lot of standing about in the cold, the sheep were sure to silence him with a tremendous bleating of 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. But by and large, the animals enjoyed these celebrations. They found it comforting to be reminded that, after all, they were truly their own masters, and that the work they did was for their own benefit. So that what with the songs, the processions, Squealer's list of figures, the thunder of the gun, the crowing of the cockerel, and the fluttering of the flag, they were able to forget that their bellies were empty, at least part of the time. In April, Animal Farm was proclaimed a republic, and it became necessary to elect a president. There was only one candidate, Napoleon, who was elected unanimously. On the same day, it was given out that fresh documents had been discovered, which revealed further details about Snowball's complicity with Jones. It now appeared that Snowball had not, as the animals had previously imagined, merely attempted to lose the battle of the cowshed by means of a stratagem, but had been openly fighting on Jones's side. In fact, it was he who had actually been the leader of the human forces, and had charged into battle with the words "Long live humanity" on his lips. The wounds on Snowball's back, which a few of the animals still remembered to have seen, had been inflicted by Napoleon's teeth. In the middle of the summer, Moses the raven suddenly reappeared on the farm, after an absence of several years. He was quite unchanged, still did no work, and talked in the same strains as ever about Sugar Candy Mountain. He would perch on a stump, flap his black wings, and talk by the hour to anyone who would listen. "Up there, comrades," he would say solemnly, pointing to the sky with his large beak. "Up there, just on the other side of that dark cloud that you can see, there it lies, Sugar Candy Mountain. That happy country where we poor animals shall rest forever from our labors." He even claimed to have been there on one of his higher flights, and to have seen the everlasting fields of clover, and the linseed cake, and lump sugar growing on the hedges. Many of the animals believed him. Their lives now, they reasoned, were hungry and laborious. Was it not right and just that a better world should exist somewhere else? A thing that was difficult to determine was the attitude of the pigs toward Moses. They all declared contemptuously that his stories about Sugar Candy Mountain were lies, and yet they allowed him to remain on the farm, not working, with an allowance of a gill of beer a day. After his hoof had healed up, Boxer worked harder than ever. Indeed, all the animals worked like slaves that year. Apart from the regular work of the farm and the rebuilding of the windmill, there was the schoolhouse for the young pigs, which was started in March. Sometimes the long hours on insufficient food were hard to bear, but Boxer never faltered. In nothing that he said or did was there any sign that his strength was not what it had been. It was only his appearance that was a little altered. His hide was less shiny than it had used to be, and his great haunches seemed to have shrunken. The others said, "Boxer will pick up when the spring grass comes on." But the spring came, and Boxer grew no fatter. Sometimes on the slope leading to the top of the quarry, when he braced his muscles against the weight of some vast boulder, it seemed that nothing kept him on his feet except the will to continue. At such times, his lips were seen to form the words, "I will work harder." He had no voice left. Once again, Clover and Benjamin warned him to take care of his health, but Boxer paid no attention. His 12th birthday was approaching, He did not care what happened, so long as a good store of stone was accumulated before he went on pension. Late one evening in the summer, a sudden rumor ran around the farm that something had happened to Boxer. He had gone out alone to drag a load of stone down to the windmill, and sure enough, the rumor was true. A few minutes later, 2 pigeons came racing in with the news. Boxer has fallen. He is lying on his side and can't get up. About half the animals on the farm rushed out to the knoll where the windmill stood. There lay Boxer, between the shafts of the cart, his neck stretched out, unable even to raise his head. His eyes were glazed, his sides matted with sweat. A thin stream of blood had trickled out of his mouth. Clover dropped to her knees at his side. "Boxer," she cried, "how are you?" "It is my lung," said Boxer in a weak voice. "It does not matter. I think you will be able to finish the windmill without me. There is a pretty good store of stone accumulated. I had only another month to go in any case. To tell you the truth, I had been looking forward to my retirement. And perhaps, as Benjamin is growing old too, they will let him retire at the same time and be a companion to me." "We must get help at once," said Clover. "Run, somebody, and tell Squealer what has happened." All the other animals immediately raced back to the farmhouse to give Squealer the news. Only Clover remained, and Benjamin, who lay down at Boxer's side, and without speaking, kept the flies off him with his long tail. After about a quarter of an hour, Squealer appeared, full of sympathy and concern. He said that Comrade Napoleon had learned with the very deepest distress of this misfortune to one of the most loyal workers on the farm, and was already making arrangements to send Boxer to be treated in the hospital at Willingdon. The animals felt a little uneasy at this. Except for Molly and Snowball, no other animal had ever left the farm, and they did not like to think of their sick comrade in the hands of human beings. However, Squealer easily convinced them that the veterinary surgeon in Willingdon could treat Boxer's case more satisfactorily than could be done on the farm. And about half an hour later, when Boxer had somewhat recovered, he was with difficulty, got onto his feet, and managed to limp back to his stall, where Clover and Benjamin had prepared a good bed of straw for him. For the next 2 days, Boxer remained in his stall. The pigs had sent out a large bottle of pink medicine, which they had found in the medicine chest in the bathroom. And Clover administered it to Boxer twice a day after meals. In the evening, she lay in his stall and talked to him, while Benjamin kept the flies off him. Boxer professed not to be sorry for what had happened. If he made a good recovery, he might expect to live another 3 years, and he looked forward to the peaceful days that he would spend in the corner of the big pasture. It would be the first time that he had had leisure to study and improve his mind. He intended, he said, to devote the rest of his life to learning the remaining 22 letters of the alphabet. However, Benjamin and Clover could only be with Boxer after working hours, and it was in the middle of the day when the van came to take him away. The animals were all at work weeding turnips under the supervision of a pig, when they were astonished to see Benjamin come galloping from the direction of the farm buildings, braying at the top of his voice. It was the first time that they had ever seen Benjamin excited. Indeed, it was the first time that anyone had ever seen him gallop. "Quick, quick," he shouted. "Come at once, they're taking Boxer away." Without waiting for orders from the pig, the animals broke off work and raced back to the farm buildings. Sure enough, there in the yard was a large closed van, drawn by 2 horses, with letters on its side, and a sly-looking man in a low-crowned bowler hat sitting on the driver's seat. And Boxer's stall was empty. The animals crowded round the van. "Goodbye, Boxer," they chorused. "Goodbye." "Fools! Fools!" shouted Benjamin, prancing around them, and stamping the earth with his small hoofs. "Fools! Do you not see what is written on the side of that van?" That gave the animals pause, and there was a hush. Muriel began to spell out the words, but Benjamin pushed her aside, and in the midst of a deadly silence he read, "Alfred Simmons, horse slaughterer and glue boiler, Willingdon, dealer in hides and bone meal, kennels supplied." Do you not understand what that means? They are taking Boxer to the knackers. A cry of horror burst from all the animals. At this moment, the man on the box whipped up his horses, and the van moved out of the yard at a smart trot. All the animals followed, crying out at the tops of their voices. Clover forced her way to the front. The van began to gather speed. Clover tried to stir her stout limbs to a gallop and achieved a canter. "Boxer!" she cried. "Boxer! Boxer! Boxer!" And just at this moment, as though he had heard the uproar outside, Boxer's face, with the white stripe down his nose, appeared at the small window at the back of the van. "Boxer!" cried Clover in a terrible voice. "Boxer, get out quickly! They're taking you to your death!" All the animals took up the cry of "Get out, Boxer, get out!" But the van was already gathering speed and drawing away from them. It was uncertain whether Boxer had understood what Clover had said. But a moment later, his face disappeared from the window, and there was the sound of a tremendous drumming of hoofs inside the van. He was trying to kick his way out. The time had been when a few kicks from Boxer's hoofs would have smashed the van to matchwood. But alas, his strength had left him, and in a few moments the sound of drumming hoofs grew fainter and died away. In desperation, the animals began appealing to the two horses which drew the van to stop. "Comrades, comrades," they shouted, "don't take your own brother to his death." But the stupid brutes, too ignorant to realize what was happening, merely set back their ears and quickened their pace. Boxer's face did not reappear at the window. Too late, someone thought of racing ahead and shutting the 5-barred gate. But in another moment, the van was through it and rapidly disappearing down the road. Boxer was never seen again. 3 days later, it was announced that he had died in the hospital at Willingdon, in spite of receiving every attention a horse could have. Squealer came to announce the news to the others. He had, he said, been present during Boxer's last hours. "It was the most affecting sight I have ever seen," said Squealer, lifting his trotter and wiping away a tear. "I was at his bedside at the very last, and at the end, almost too weak to speak, he whispered in my ear that his sole sorrow was to have passed on before the windmill was finished. 'Forward, comrades,' he whispered. 'Forward in the name of the rebellion. Long live Animal Farm. Long live Comrade Napoleon. Napoleon is always right.' Those were his very last words, comrades." Here, Squealer's demeanor suddenly changed. He fell silent for a moment, and his little eyes darted suspicious glances from side to side before he proceeded. It had come to his knowledge, he said, that a foolish and wicked rumor had been circulated at the time of Boxer's removal. Some of the animals had noticed that the van which took Boxer away was marked "Horse Slaughterer," and had actually jumped to the conclusion that Boxer was being sent to the knackers. "It was almost unbelievable," said Squealer, "that any animal could be so stupid. Surely," he cried indignantly, whisking his tail and skipping from side to side, "surely they knew their beloved leader, Comrade Napoleon, better than that." But the explanation was really very simple. The van had previously been the property of the knacker, and had been bought by the veterinary surgeon, who had not yet painted the old name out. That was how the mistake had arisen. The animals were enormously relieved to hear this, and when Squealer went on to give further graphic details of Boxer's deathbed, the admirable care he had received, and the expensive medicines for which Napoleon had paid without a thought as to the cost, their last doubts disappeared, and the sorrow that they felt for their comrade's death was tempered by the thought that at last he died happy. Napoleon himself appeared at the meeting on the following Sunday morning, and pronounced a short oration in Boxer's honor. It had not been possible, he said, to bring back their lamented comrade's remains for interment on the farm, but he had ordered a large wreath to be made from the laurels in the farmhouse garden, and sent down to be placed on Boxer's grave. And in a few days' time the pigs intended to hold a memorial banquet in Boxer's honor. Napoleon ended his speech with a reminder of Boxer's two favorite maxims: "I will work harder," and "Comrade Napoleon is always right." Maxims, he said, which every animal would do well to adopt as his own. On the day appointed for the banquet, a grocer's van drove up from Willingdon and delivered a large wooden crate at the farmhouse. That night there was the sound of uproarious singing, which was followed by what sounded like a violent quarrel, and ended at about 11 o'clock with a tremendous crash of glass. No one stirred in the farmhouse before noon on the following day, and the word went round that from somewhere or other the pigs had acquired the money to buy themselves another case of whiskey.
How poor Boxer is. I mean, how poor Boxer is.
Yeah.
He is very hard working, you see, but finally he is sold out.
Yeah, why you laugh? Why you laugh?
I think he laughed at the part when they said his last dying sentence was "Long live Napoleon." So what do you guys think in the chapter? What's your opinion?
Boxer. You know what
You guys don't have any opinion? You can participate. Kind of sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
make people angry. Make people angry.
I read this in high school, so to be honest, I forgot that happened in that chapter. I read it and I was like, oh, why do I get the chapter where the horse dies? But so now that you guys know where all of the vocabulary words are, you can answer the questions on your vocabulary sheet, unless you guys have already done it.
What?
Without-
Dictionary. Dictionary.
Okay. So who completed it before we actually did the reading? You guys have to okay. So I'll give you guys 5 minutes or so to do the vocabulary. Some of you have already finished it, so that's fine. Maybe add some notes to the reading for information that you're going to need for the summary while your classmates finish their vocabulary sheet.
So no animal farm too.
Hmm?
No animal farm too.
What do you mean, no animal farm?
This is the
I mean, it's the no is only one.
Oh.
No two. I mean, it's,
Like a sequel, like a second book?
yeah,
I don't think so.
because
No, it was just one.
in the end of this book, the animals still haven't rebellion.
Rebelled.
Rebellion. What?
We could either say they still haven't had a rebellion or they still haven't rebelled.
Okay. Still haven't rebelled.
Well, this isn't the last chapter of the book though.
Yeah.
There's chapter 10, which you guys are going to cover.
I think next chapter is the second last chapter.
Yes, it is. So you guys have read the second last chapter now. So it'll end in the next chapter. But you guys, I believe, have to read that on your own. Okay, you guys have 3 more minutes to finish the vocabulary. And then we'll take it up, okay? Yes.
What's your
English.
厕所
English.
washroom?
Okay. Okay, so we're going to take it up. How many people are done?
Most.
I'm down.
Most.
You mean with this worksheet?
Yes.
Okay.
Who isn't done? You're not.
Actually, this sheet is not very hard. You see, there are only 9 words.
Ah.
We used to have like 15 to 20 words.
Did I take it easy on you guys today then? I think so.
Comparing with this worksheet,
Comparing.
it's much more easier.
Okay. Okay, so we'll take it up, even though some of you aren't done.
We are
Not everyone's done. Okay, so number 1 for poultice.
Say.
B.
Say.
C.
Say.
Okay, who got a different answer other than C?
Charlie.
What did you get?
We got B.
No. So poultice and pension. Poultice, you should have C. So if you look in the reading, I believe it's clover. They said they use a poultice to heal boxer's hoof, and clover chews it. You can't chew a payment that's made for old people, right? So it would be a mixture of medicine like a balm that is placed on a cloth before being applied to the skin, or in this case, hoof. So it would be C. So number 2, pension.
波
B.
B.
波
Boy.
boy boy B
B.
boy
Boy.
Boy.
I was just like it.
B
Faster capital.
吃的
Alpha, beta,
gamma
F,
Ignore the.
number 3, F.
Okay. Did someone get something different other than
No.
B?
no
Okay. So
yes
3. Superannuation.
Freddy,
Friday
F,
F.
F
F.
F
F.
F
Yes. Who got something other than F? No
no
one? Okay. It's not a word that you use often, if at all. To be honest, I had to Google it because I've never come across that word before. So it's another synonym. It's a synonym for old age, but we don't normally use it ever. So knacker, number 4.
R A
Thank you. So A. So the difference between knacker and a slaughterhouse or a slaughterer is that knackers only deal with animals that humans can't consume. So a pig wouldn't go to a knacker, or a cow because we can eat that meat. But a horse, you don't normally eat the meat of a horse, at least not here. So they go to something like a knacker because a horse can be turned into glue. So they can use parts of the horse's body to make into glue. Okay, so that's the difference. If you see knacker, it's not necessarily a synonym for a slaughterer. It's something a bit different. Okay, so number 5.
D.
the
Stop saying sounds. Okay. So number 6, highball.
H
H.
H H
H. Okay, 7.
G
G.
G G G G G G G G
G,
Stop making the sounds.
G
Please.
G G G
Okay, number 8, spontaneous.
I,
Perfect. And number 9,
E. Easy.
yeah. Okay. Okay, so now that you guys know your vocabulary words so well, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to create 2 sentences using any one of the vocabulary words, but you're going to put it into your own context. You're going to try and use it in your own way.
right where
You can write right at the bottom.
okay
So you're just going to take 5 minutes to write 2 sentences using 2 of the vocabulary words. So one sentence, you could use poultice. The second sentence, maybe you'll use spontaneous.
I will just need to make 2 sentences.
2 sentences, 1 sentence for each vocabulary word. So if you look at it,
sentences for each
Wow.
word.
Are you kidding me?
okay, so
2 sentences
So
with
you
2
pick- no,
two
you
different words.
pick 2 vocabulary words, okay? The ones that you like the best.
And you make 2
Okay.
sentences.
You're gonna use one in one sentence and the other in the other sentence.
Okay.
Okay? I'm not gonna give you 9 sentences. And it has to be your own idea. So the best way to learn a new word is by using it. So reading can help introduce the word, but afterwards you have to know how to use it. So that's what you guys are gonna do, and you have 5 minutes. So at 4:56 you should be done. Add more detail.
Ooh.
You don't see it. So, so that's what you have to change the sentence for it to because you can't just say that.
You.
Yes, perfect. So just in case, poultice is not
Okay, I
something you
finished.
ingest. It's something you
I finished.
put on,
I finished.
like a cream.
I finished. I finished. What? Should I even should I even
English.
일단은
All back.
charge.
I don't need charger.
All back.
I need the baby.
No,
I
power bank.
I need the charge baby.
Battery?
No, I think power back.
Power pack.
Pack?
Yes, it's
Yeah,
Or
charge
a
baby.
charger, a battery charger.
Charger baby. Charge baby.
Charger.
Yeah, in China, charge baby.
Okay, well, in English that would make sense.
We already finished it. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
charge
2
baby.
sentences.
Yeah,
Just
no.
2 sentences.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
Can read it. Can read it.
I can't read the Kahoot yet. I can't read
Oh,
it.
sorry.
You know what?
Will Shirley asked me whether I love the class.
You just love Michelin, not the class.
My
You are fake, you are
spontaneous
lying.
reaction is saying yes when Shirley asked me whether I love the class.
I don't know if she knows that.
And what would your answer be, Kevin?
Oh yeah.
Okay, is everybody finished? Yes or no?
I don't know.
You don't. You have 2 sentences? You have 2?
3 sentences.
Two,
I had 3.
You have 3.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And they're all grammatically correct?
Yeah. Because I don't make grammar errors.
What are you looking for?
Given was after he.
Oh, here.
Yeah, 我要回信息了。
Patience.
要不然花钱把它先把它送回去。
I know, wasn't fun. Oh, yeah, that works too.
What? 67.
It's been brought down to 65 again, by true.
It doesn't know.
Partial raise.
No
It
more?
doesn't know.
Like my sentence.
I can't read
My
Kahoot.
sentence.
He will win the next one.
They're
He will not
simple.
win this one. And what
You
he
can add
does,
more detail.
he will change that again to 67. You will
I
see.
don't want to.
See.
不用。
And it's no because
不
she
行，
wants it.
不行，看不着。
Before
我们可以一起
she
洗手。
ask you to change it.
位置是能跑到，
Unless
为啥？
you're doing really well.
游泳馆的救生员，
I would
我
probably
原是我们
say
村的游泳馆的被监视养的那个，
action
被救生的那个。
How much money do you make? No, I mean the definition.
of
I have some questions.
When
Questions.
you made as you were working, they have.
Uh, Choose one you like best. Choose one you like best. It's
What's that?
the four bottle. Choose one.
You know, some of the words.
Choose one you like.
One.
Yeah, best. The four.
Follow.
what is it?
So if
So
I
a percentage of what you make goes to your pension.
so if I make I don't know money,
Whoa.
they pay me more.
If you must
But they have a cap.
live with animal in a closed area, which one you want?
They don't.
This first one is snake, spider, mouse, frog.
No.
Oh!
Percentage of your wages.
I think spider.
Spider，
So again.
Your wages, your only contributing.
This one is
Spider is the second one.
this one is mouse.
Yeah, third is mouse. Yeah. Can
You're
you bear? Can you bear your?
They can give me like 2,000.
Can you meet other boys when you have a boyfriend? You know?
What kind of quiz is this?
Yeah, I mean, like you have like for example, you have a boyfriend, but you have fun with another boy. Have you done it? Never. Okay.
Okay, ready?
行了，
我
看到。
这说话太弱了。
What?
4 kinds of flowers. I don't know.
Okay. So you guys are gonna share one of your sentences with the class. And to be honest, I think Donnie has one of the funniest. Okay, so you have to do 2 sentences, right? If you didn't finish it, then you can just share the one. But pick one of the sentences and tell your class. Well, say what the vocabulary word is, and then how you used it. Kevin,
I use spontaneous.
you used part of spontaneous.
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 Spontaneous. I created a new one. My spontaneous reaction is saying that when Michelle asks us whether we are all right.
Okay, that's good. Okay, someone else.
Like pension.
Okay, you use pension.
Kevin got his pension yesterday after he retired.
Kevin retired at a young age. Okay, who's next?
So
Pick a sentence, say what the vocabulary word you used, and
I
how
love Michelin's class more than I can say. Sorry.
Wait, that's not a vocabulary word.
I'm sorry.
Michelin. Vocabulary is
Oh,
Michelin.
I like Michelin's Uproar's class more than I can say.
Oh,
Good.
I got one.
Oh gosh.
How do we read this one? Super.
Super animated.
Just kidding. I love Michelin. You and her will be super. Sorry. Just kidding. Sorry. Okay, that's it.
Okay, Donnie, share yours. Donnie, share yours. What was the vocabulary word? How did you use it?
Also, just one.
Just the one.
Okay. Also, you use the pension. The Michelin can get her pensions when she is 65 years old.
Never. He's 18. She's 18 now.
What's the word?
I want to be Bill,
At all?
so I could be able to get money, get my pension without working. Two words, one sentence. I get money.
But in this case, piebald is normally an adjective we use for animals, not for people. People's skin doesn't normally look
I'm
piebald.
an animal.
Okay, you're an animal, and so is the animal.
You have that horse, horse, pure health.
Hawks or
Hawks.
polka
这个
dots?
怎么选？
Yeah. Just like the piebald.
Piebald. Piebald.
What is his name? What hawks? I don't know.
What do you mean?
就是天花怎么说？
天花。
Piebald. It's a word you use to describe an animal's, not necessarily fur, but you could. But like a dog could be piebald. Like a Dalmatian.
Smallpox.
Smallpox.
No, that's an illness.
What?
But it leaves a rash on the skin.
Yeah.
But it goes away, right?
Very.
Whereas piebald, an animal is born looking like that. So it's not caused by anything. It's just genetics. So it's just how the genes came together. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Who hasn't shared? There's 4 of you that haven't shared their sentence yet. Yeah. So what was your vocabulary word?
Pension.
Pension? Okay.
Eastern paid the pension of his father because he has a job to. So boring.
So make it.
Paid the pension? Yeah, but in this case, a pension is something you work, while you work, there's money that gets taken from your paycheck and goes into a pension when you retire. So you build a pension based on how you work. But you can put, then if you were the person, you would be putting money into the pension. You would have paid for the pension while you're working instead of someone else doing it. Does that make sense? So you add money to your pension, not someone else.
I can't wait for the Kahoot game actually.
So you have a little bit more work to do, but I'm not sure if we'll have time.
Oh.
Too bad.
Don't like machine.
Mission is ours. It's us. Mission is belongs to us.
Kahoot, please.
Mission is belongs to us.
Okay, 3 people haven't shared their sentence.
Poultice.
Poultice, okay.
My grandpa put poultice on his skin to treat his back pain.
Good.
Heaven pressed out and uproarious laughter in Julie's class.
That's a good one.
Bonus marks.
And did you share? Do you have
He is a famous knacker in Sudbury.
He's a famous knacker in Sudbury. Knacker.
I like your sentence.
You're the only one who used knacker, so good job. Okay, so that's not good.
So we are done.
I did too many of these sentences.
I know you're always the example.
No, what's going on?
I like this word. I like your sentence.
So you guys are gonna get into
Where's it going?
partners. The Kahoot's supposed to come after. But
Skip it.
okay, so you can either do the summary by yourselves or you can work on it right now with your partner. So what would you prefer to do?
As a homework.
You would prefer to do it alone for homework.
No, for homework I'm not alone.
Well, how are you supposed to do your homework with your partner if you're not?
Yeah, we live
They have
together.
too much homework already, so they need
That
to do it in
too.
class.
Yes.
Oh,
No, I don't have homework. I sent you.
How do we finish?
I have sent to you.
50 minutes.
I sent you all of the homework.
You guys talk too much. We could play the Kahoot on Wednesday. Because you're still going to remember what happened in chapter 9.
Do it on Wednesday.
So we'll do Kahoot on Wednesday before you have to do. Hey,
Will
you're
you
going
come?
to speak in English.
Will you come?
Huh?
Will you come?
Yeah. So you can do the Kahoot on Wednesday before you have to do a mock reading test. So it's a fun thing before you have to do something not so fun.
We can.
Or you do it, or there's actually there's no other option. So we're doing it on Wednesday because I don't want to give you homework if you have too much because usually you don't do it.
What? You realize it. Finally.
You won't do the homework if I give it to you because you have too much, okay?
Good for you, good for you.
Yes,
Finally,
I'm so smart, right? So
I
smart.
always did it. I always done it.
Yes. You're one of 3 that actually did it on time. Everybody else didn't do it.
Bonus mark.
Bonus
For
marks
Megan.
for Megan.
Okay, so you'll do the summary now. So you're gonna pick a partner, and you're gonna work with the partner to create a summary for the scene
Oh, I
here.
think I have finished it.
Oh.
Imagine you are writing this for a sick classmate. I'm a sick classmate. So you write for me.
No,
I'm a sick classmate.
no, you're not. So you are capable of writing it with your partner. So you have a partner, so it's less work because you're working together. Okay? And I'm allowing you guys to write in point form if you want, but you have to make the sentences detailed. So point form,
I know.
not a paragraph, but you're just putting little sentences and bullet points with like the important information. So you can do it this way, or you can write a paragraph. It's your choice. But you have to do it with a partner.
Or I can send the link to them.
No.
Or I can send the
But don't
link.
just write down the
No.
timeline.
So what you need to remember before you guys start, what you need to remember is answering the questions who, what, where, when, and how. And you should only include important events, characters, and the overall information. So you don't have to put everything. So your summary should not be the length of the chapter. And if you should also follow the timeline of the chapter. So all of your summary information should start from the beginning, should include the middle, and then should include the final paragraphs within the chapter. So you have to follow the timeline. If you're bouncing to different things and you're all over the place, the summary is not going to make sense. You have to follow the order of how it happened. Okay? Because remember, this is not for you technically. So you have until the end of class to finish it, and then you're going to hand it in to me because I'm going to read it over. Okay?
No.
Okay? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you
So, partner?
amplify it?
Can you amplify it?
Or can you zoom that?
You want
Can you
to
zoom?
Oh, amplify it.
Amplify.
Or zoom. Just say zoom in.
Zoom in. Amplifier.
Oh, that's not. Good?
No, amplifier more, please.
No. Okay.
A little more, please.
No.
看你给我写的多，我还保
Big glasses. Or move closer. So you're working with a partner. I don't see any of you with a partner except for Kevin.
Yeah, I'm always you. I'm always you. I should
No.
Which always belongs to Kevin.
Give me your answer.
Wow. Which
Very
always
jealous.
belongs to Kevin.
Okay, so you guys are 9
Yeah.
of you today. So there's gonna be a group of 3. So if anything, you guys will finish the work even faster because you have 3 brains.
So one group just need to hand in one summary.
Yes, you're gonna write on 1 page.
Yeah.
So this is how you guys listen up. This is how you should do it. One person is gonna write, the other person, and you're gonna talk together. But one person has to write it because it has to go on.
哦，这个可以让我看这个，这个好看，不好看的这个。
And then group.
我们讨论了。
Group 2. They're group 3. You're group 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Perfect.
So
Excellent.
So
We are going
just
to
summarize.
We are
it is not difficult to stand up and move around. Come on.
The celebration
Yeah.
of the
You
victory.
can move the desks
The war.
together though.
It's okay. We didn't tell.
Okay.
Yeah, true. We live in West Residence.
Good for
So we
you.
can do draft class.
No, they
Do
have
your work.
more.
You guys have 10 minutes.
Include the
It's not a lot of time.
custom cakes.
And I think they close the location.
I don't think it's relevant. You see, we need to write down the summary, but the last sentence we need to
You
write
can
it
do
for the
it.
sixth classmate. That's very complicated.
I said, imagine you're writing this for a sixth class. It's just for you.
I thought in the first sentence we need to write a summary. So well, I'm not clear what we're trying to write.
Yes, but what I'm saying, I'm giving you an example. So you're giving this to someone. You want to tell them what happened in chapter 9, but you should only include the important stuff. Not too
just
much.
to the model.
Yeah.
Use this model to
Yeah.
describe what
So
happened.
just include the important information. So if he doesn't read the whole chapter, he just takes your summary. He should know what happened in chapter 9 even though he didn't see it. Make sense?
Oh, send the link.
No.
看过来。主动的 boxer， 什么？啊 ，boxer，
Okay.
提了后或者后。
And if you guys are lazy and don't want to do it, you guys have to stay until you hand something in.
I will stay and wait for the people that go.
They work hard.
Megan, you
They
can leave
work
at
more hard than
5:20
fall
and I'll
because
stay with the.
he can retire. So he want to say he want to look forward to finishing the windmill. And because of the hard work, he was become more sick or more weaker, like Charlie, more weaker. And one day in summer, he has been hitting by the windmill, by the big stone.
Is it like us speaking?
And then he couldn't stand up
So you
anymore.
guys have to have something handed in to me in 10 minutes or you can't.
Oh, handed, not speak.
No, you have to look at it. Write it
You
down.
handed it down.
Yeah, I'm speaking to Joe.
Putting it together like a paragraph.
Okay, but you have to have something handed in to me for
Yeah, I think he
in
she
like
might.
5 minutes.
For fun.
Or you stay late.
I think she right now.
So point form, that's why I said you can do it in point form because you have like 10 minutes.
Very similar.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
You guys good?
So we can pick out
Make sure it's in English. Okay?
Yeah, I don't.
Animals think
He's writing English.
they have better life than before.
What?
Whatever, how
Blah.
hard
Blah.
Okay, put it together.
Russia.
Okay? I don't know why you don't need any of those. Okay, you just need one. You only need one.
家里面买的。那用啥？打算通那个。
New method.
And in April, every farm was
Yeah, we should write down time.
不是让上面东西，因为是 sleeping less, eating less, work harder. He's weak,
And
not
then you
his
just write at the bottom
not
the
his
important parts.
sleep hold. His sleep hold was in healing. His recovery had been empowered. Not his feelings. He's just weak. He's old and weak because of the hard work.
Ah.
I'll see what I have at the end.
Napoleon, animal farm,
On Tuesday.
animal farm, republic.
Or just like this.
No, it's just like.
我不想弄。
Yeah, that's true.
有点不好，一起来一下我就变大了。
我放的是 FOUNDD，但是它的棍是 FOUNDED，它不是泛的。
然后 one day， when they see someone like this, he was hated. He was hated by us. Don't
That's optimism.
okay. I'm sorry.
Republic.
Public. Napoli become the president. Yeah, it's the same. Become the president, and he increase animals in daily task. For example, chicken need to scanning 600 eggs every day, not 400 eggs before. Right.
Moss.
归属感。中文啊。
是一个偏地方的。
Pencil broken.
What?
我们提
还是得把那个还是把这胶加在选项里。到后面你们后面就在后面放字儿，好。
中文翻译
瓦伦丁。
瓦伦丁。OK。
The schooling. The schooling.
Mento's gonna dislike me forever.
Yeah, I will.
就把它叫 win 那后面加卡不够。
We're thinking about it. Go first Chinese name.
Huh?
We're thinking about it. Go first Chinese name.
Why?
What would be?
Well, won't be.
Just like pronouncing.
How you pronounce Chinese?
Valentin.
Valentin. Valentin. Valentin.
This is good practice because they have a novel summary that they're reading on their own this semester, and they're doing a summary of it on Wednesday. So this is good practice.
Who actually read their novel?
Ask them.
Who read their novel?
What?
All of it.
What novel?
You read all of yours? Voltaire?
Just
What do I mean
100
for that?
pages. Just
Good memory.
No, my fault.
It was the smallest book of all.
yeah, just 100. I have.
She said 100. It's 100 page. You choose one with 400 page. It's not my fault. She said 100.
I read a novel in university that was over 700. That one wasn't fun. And it was about
Every war.
discovering Canada.
Boxer has.
Why you didn't see a video on YouTube? Why you didn't see a video on YouTube? Yeah.
Like an audiobook?
No. A 7-minute video.
Movie. Oh,
explaining-
because there's no movie about it.
No, just a video. You can find it on YouTube, like a 7 videos.
Yeah, but those work until you have to reference a page or a quote in the novel and you don't know where it is. So you have to read it. And you have to write essays on it.
Hey, what was your career? What was the thing that you were?
Studying?
Yeah.
English literature.
I will have to be done with the discovery of Canada.
Because I did Canadian literature. Canada is a country that was discovered, right?
Okay, so you speak French too?
Why? Because I don't. Nobody in my family speaks French. I don't speak French.
And I mean, like, you study the language of Canadians.
Because of
What do you
heavy
mean?
war.
Like, you study the language of
Yeah,
Canadians.
but Canada wasn't only discovered by French, it was discovered by the English too. I'm the English part.
Yeah, but the
Because
people,
my family is Irish and Italian, so I don't speak French.
you speak Italian, you speak Irish.
Irish doesn't have a language. They used to, but they don't anymore.
does not have a language.
They
So
do,
how
they
they
used
speak?
to. In what?
I don't know what.
No.
So how they speak?
They had a language, it's like lost now, nobody uses the
I
Irish
know what they
language.
speak.
English, but with an Irish accent. It's like the British speak English, but they have an accent, right?
Oh, class is over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you guys have so far?
Yeah, I write to her.
No,
Nothing.
And I will write to her. And
Hey,
he just,
sit down.
I write to her. And he just,
Wrote it in Chinese.
yeah, he transfer it
Yeah,
to.
but you can't translate all that in no minutes because you
You
have
use
no
Google
minutes.
Translate to read it. You can use Google Translate to
Yeah,
read
you
it.
can use Google Translate
No.
to read it.
And I wouldn't use a translator. I just give it to Aaron and be like, you translate this.
When Kevin is in my class next semester, he won't be as funny.
Yeah, tell them that's
Don't give me Chinese because I won't be reading it.
You can.
I
Hey,
can't
you know,
read
it's
it.
my last opportunity, you know. When I go into the program, just get the idea. How can I speak Chinese? How can I speak Chinese?
Chinese can be your second language.
Chinese.
I don't know it that well. You don't just learn Chinese in one night. It takes a long time.
You can Chinese can be your.
Yes, it does.
Take a photo.
I've been studying it for 2 months, and all I know is a few verbs and some fruit. That's it. I don't even know how to read it.
For example,
你好，谢谢。
and something else.
You just speaking that.
Do it.
Okay, so you guys aren't finished it.
你好美。
Yeah.
你好。
Yeah, 你好美 beautiful.
Yes, beautiful. Yes,
Yeah.
that is the word.
He said you are beautiful and he loves you.
No,
No,
I just said
that's
ni
not
hao
what he
mei.
said. I do know that much. So you guys are gonna finish it for
我爱你。
Wednesday.
我爱你。
You guys are gonna finish it for Wednesday. Okay? Sit down. You're gonna finish it for Wednesday, so you're gonna hand it in to me on Wednesday. So when you have breaks, like tomorrow, you can work with your partner to finish it because I want it handed in on Wednesday at the beginning of class. And if it's not done, no Kahoot. Okay? So you'll do a mock reading test and that's it. So I'll just make you read for half an hour. Okay?
Perfect.
No fun.
Perfect.
Perfect.
You say that now, but you'll be complaining on Wednesday. Okay? So take a picture of the instructions and you have to finish it with your partner for Wednesday. Okay?
I will create some for Chinese to you and Michigan.
No.
Maybe.
I have my own tutor. I'm good.
You're okay.
Okay,